my room look really messy? You know, I don't care if it does.
No, fuck it. It's your off-campus apartment. You get so many cards, you're all set.
How's that shit like, whoa, oh. Why you gotta fight with me at Cheesecake? You know I love to go there. Didn't you call me light skin?
Can I do my thing for 1 second?
Oh, sorry.
Guys, welcome to Bad Publicity.
Hey!
How's it going? Thanks for joining us on a Wednesday. Again, we are running the same theme here, keeping you on your toes and time shifting a bit for, hey, you people on the West Coast and a little further that, you know, that like to catch us every once in a while. So we appreciate that. How you boys doing?
I'm great. I'm excellent. I'm feeling it. I'm feeling good.
Like Tony the Tiger great? Or just...
I mean, I love some Frosted Flakes, by the way, if you didn't know. I love some Frosted Flakes.
I would say it's a good pick. I mean, like, it's not tier 1 on the cereal thing. Like, nothing is going to top a Golden Graham, but...
Wow, you said Golden Grahams?
Golden Grahams is number 1.
Are those a thing?
Through and through.
Huh.
Wait, you don't have Golden Grahams?
Throw back, my friend. Throw back.
You can still pick them up here and there. I mean, I don't think it's part of a well-balanced breakfast or anything, but I mean, like, what cereal is?
Still riding that Cheerios train, man. Cheerios are the shit.
I don't know. There's something weird that happened with Cheerios a couple weeks ago. I think my wife saw like one of the ingredients was like some kind of chemical they put in it. And
oh, don't tell me that now.
Yeah. Let me just say that my kids don't eat the Cheerios no more.
There must be at least 1.5 foot of me that's made of pure Cheerio. I grew up on that. You can't be telling me that now. Damn it,
dude! I grew up on good whole wheat shreddies, man. That was it. And not even like the only time like I slept over at a friend's house, that's when I would have like Golden Grahams or like the Lucky Charms or something cool. I come home and it was like purebred till I moved out. There was always shreddies there. That was it.
That sounds so sad. I'm sad for you.
Hey, we're built on consistency, if nothing but.
There you go.
Guys,
nice.
Let's go from talking about the prizes in cereal boxes to something a little more cooler. Just a little. So we're seeing some news hit the fan, some brown stuff hit the whirly thing about
what?
About a new big box, and news just spread.
It's full of whole grains.
What's your thoughts on this? I can tell you that the one thing that stands out to me, so the first thing I did was I'm really liking this new Weyland, because to me that means that they are ready to reintroduce bad publicity into the game.
Well, and is there a better mechanic in the game of Netrunner than bad publicity?
I don't think so.
I think not.
It's been it's been underappreciated for a long time. It kind of just stopped almost altogether. Like, and I know there was a problem, or with Valencia balancing and stuff like that with blackmail, and I think they were just waiting for a lot of that stuff to be rotated out. But other than that, this is going to be good, because there's no way that they can have an ID that just says gain 3 whenever you take at least 1 bad publicity and not have any ways to get bad publicity. I mean, that would just be...
Well, hey, right there in the article, they preview the new transaction Too Big to Fail.
Yes.
Which gets you from 0 to 7 credits. Easy money. Plus the bad pub, which is going to be another 3, so it's actually 0 to 10.
If you multiply that by 10, that means it's 0 to 100, which is like a lyric in a Drake song, so you know it's good.
Oh, shoot!
Is Drake too big to fail?
Yes. Yes.
Oh, Canada.
He can't fail. He can't spell.
You know, and then you're seeing that Shaper ID. Now, this is something that I think is really cool. This is a Shaper to get you excited to play Shaper. That's something that we really haven't seen this style before. Where I guess the theme behind this is that this is some kind of Jinteki person that has crossed the lines and brought the Psy game over. I like the wording on it too. The way that it doesn't say like engage in a Psy game, or it doesn't really say anything about Psy. It's you and the corp secretly spend. Now I think there was cards. I don't have the list in front of me because obviously we do things live and we are very rarely prepared for the way live discussion triages out.
Of course.
But Alec, you're usually pretty good at Rolodexing this stuff. There's cards out there that do actually use that word, right? Like that wording and phrases. Whenever the corp, whenever you secretly spend credits, right? So I think Jinteki has cards that use that phrasing. So it's going to be interesting if we're going to see a resurgence of those cards come into play if Nisei, which again is a cool name for her as a last name. I guess she was part of the Nisei division. If she becomes super popular, or if you're going to play off that stuff.
Sure. Yeah, two cards that I'll point out that are relevant in this space, previously released. On the runner side, there's Government Investigations, which is a zero-cost, neutral, current, no influence that says while secretly spending credits, players cannot spend 2 credits. So if what you're wanting is to tighten that range to make sure that you're spending the same number of credits more frequently, maybe you think about this current. On the other side, though, if you want to get really spicy and tech against Akiko Nisei, you might want to run Fumiko Yamamori, which is the Jinteki asset for res for trash. Whenever you and the runner reveal secretly spent credits, do 1 meat damage if you and the runner spent a different number of credits. So Fumiko comes out, and then it's really high stakes, right? Because you get an RD, it's like, do I get an extra card or do I take a meat damage, right? So yeah.
That's why you're
spicy.
the Rolodex, evil to pull that up in a single bound. That's why you get paid more than me for this stuff.
I got you covered.
But cool. Someone in chat says that she's a Caprice clone.
Yeah, I think the article alluded to the fact that she escaped from Jinteki.
Not someone. Let's recognize it was Joshua there. So.
Yeah, I think there's some people on Reddit who are speculating that Akiko is like, if you're naming your clones, Akiko would be A, Caprice would be C. So this is maybe like Caprice's older sister in a cloney way. Yeah, man, I'm really jazzed for this idea. I think it's super rad. It looks super fun.
Matt Z art too, so can't go wrong.
Oh yeah, Matt Z killing it once again. So 100%.
Looks like we're seeing some support for mini factions there. Looks like we're seeing some throwbacks to the team sponsorship stuff in HB. We got some basketball stuff happening.
Yeah. There you go.
And an interesting one is the new guy that's up on the 1s and 2s, right? DJ, or maybe in the future there's the 1, 2, 3s, but
DJ Fenris.
Obviously, he took his alias from that cool little piece of ice from back in the day.
Wow, throwback! Wow, Fenris.
There you go. That bad
pub.
That illicit tech.
Is that the tattoo on his arm too? Is that a Fenris?
Oh,
it is though.
Nice.
Good call.
Good call. Yeah. Sick. Yeah, Fenris is fascinating. I mean, if you look at the number of Gmods that are out there, a bunch of them are pretty remarkably powerful. Like the ability to get Smoke or Haley or Wu or Los or Max or Reyna or Steve on call, just in addition to your normal ID ability, is it's pretty dope. I think people are going to find creative uses, kind of like Rebirth, to make use of this card.
So, when this comes out, this is going to be something that we're going to have to definitely talk about. But I am going to call it right here, right now. I think that this card is going to have to be somehow adjusted.
DJ Fenris?
First impressions. First impressions. I really think that this is going to be a broken card for one, just for the fact that it's one influence. I mean, in my mind, when I think about the game, the IDs, the abilities on an IDs are supposed to break and bend certain rules in a core game shell, right? Like when you look at the game. So the ID is a bonus that is extending your abilities, breaking certain rules and letting you do certain things. That's why you pick that ID, you build a deck around her. To be able to do something like this and bring that other, like that ability into the game is just honestly blowing my mind with with ideas and stuff like that. Like I'm really loving it. And although I'm thinking too is that it could be like Rebirth, the hype train of Rebirth when that was spoiled was just, I feel like I'm on the same level with DJ here, that I'm through the ceiling with hype and ideas and just how bonkers this could actually be. But maybe through play and stuff like that, it kind of narrows out. But Rebirth did serve a purpose, and it was dominant for a while in certain, in those certain styles of Anarch decks to switch out and stuff like that. It's kind of been put on the back burner a little bit, but I just think that this is going to be bonkers. I know it. Yeah, even though it says it's Gmod only, there are some nasty Gmods out there, man.
Yeah, I think that you're right. This is going to be dope. It's going to come out and people are going to do a lot with it. If it does get out of hand, though, fortunately, A, it is a resource, and B, it's a connection. So there are already a bunch of existing tools to deal with cards like that. So people are going to slot their MCA informants. You could go crazy and run a paper trail, right? If you want to really counter connections. So there are options to trash this card if need be.
No, and I think that's fair to say. But I was going to say too that because it's a connection, I think that even amps the power of it a little bit for how it can also play off all of those cards that combo with connection. So
true.
Just sitting at one influence just seems like they kind of dialed it down, hoping that it sees play, but and to make it easier and to spice the game up, because I think something like this drastically changes a play style. When you can essentially use two IDs, right? And where I believe they're talking about in the article, we're talking about Gmods that even are not even in the same faction, right?
Right.
So
yeah,
I mean, think about that.
Right.
Two of them, using a Shaper Gmod, and then pulling in say Max's ability for draw and deck cycling, or vice versa, using a using Max and then having something else I don't know what. I just oh geez, I just think it's gonna be
it's exciting.
It definitely also I feel like it kind of puts them in this unique box to some extent as far as how their design is going to work. I suppose anytime you create a card, obviously, you may, depending on the power level of that card, limit the other cards that are created. But it feels like unless the cards that handle, like you said, like MCA and Former, the cards that handle strong resources like that stay relevant, they become the cards that people consistently play. Two identities, especially if they fire frequently, can be game breaking. So I think the potential's there for it to be totally busted. But I also would like to think that they know that it's only Gmods, and they just care, or they can host, and that what is it, like what's the kind 14 or technically existing Gmods. I think because they have the running list of what each of those are, they are probably going to continue to try to balance the strength of all Gmods. So that they're aware, like, okay, I got it. It has to be this. So if we're gonna give this ID a Gmod, it can only contain this certain power level because we can't let it be abused. And I think that's fine.
Yeah, but I just mean, like, when you see a card like this come out now, you kind of makes you go back and think, like, how long have they been thinking about something like this? Was the initial was this initially an idea that they wanted to do? Like, is everything, is there something out there that's already broken because it's given a Gmod thing it just kind of got tagged on there for flavor? Because we haven't really seen identities use like subtypes yet, like or to be that prevalent. Yeah. So I mean, that is kind of cool. In itself, right there.
Totally.
I mean, the other stuff to talk about is what you guys think of that Jinteki one. She's an installed core card. The runner may access the card. If he or she does, remove it from the game instead of trashing it. Otherwise, add it to the runner's score area as an agenda worth -1 point. I feel like we've seen this style before. I don't know how I feel about this. To tell you the truth, I think, to me, I would rather put cards in my deck that get added to the score area as a 1 point agenda for me, rather than take. I would rather, no matter what side I'm on, I would rather play towards the style of I am moving my score closer to finishing rather than moving my opponent's score backwards, like farther away from the finish line. So I don't know how I feel about it. It's interesting, but I'm not as hyped for that one.
Yeah, I'm also not convinced. I think you're spot on. Add on to that the fact that there are several runner cards that let you use spending or forfeiting agendas as a resource. It's like, oh, well, you run one Shadow Net, they give you a Hangeki or whatever it's called, and you're like, ah, cool, I'll just forfeit that with Shadow Net and get a 0 cost sure gamble. Thank you very much. So yeah, it definitely is. It's a fun card for kind of baiting the runner into traps, maybe. But I agree, it's not the most consistent or powerhouse.
Yeah, and even when you had, I feel like, a card that does the negative somewhat a little better with Shikyu back in the day. It's not like that card was. I didn't feel like I essentially I would be like, oh, this is a great card, put it in my deck. But when you're deck building, it was kind of the first one I was like, cut. So I don't know how I feel about this one. Hollis, you got any thoughts on?
I mean, I think it's fine for Jinteki to have another tool in the toolbox. So basically, in the article, they kind of reference, Project Junebug. They try to tell you, hey, did this plan with Junebug not work out or no? Well, you get the option right now to end the game, and your opponent's going to have to make a very tough call. or a semi-tough call. And they could lose in the game, but it's like, well, maybe it's a gambit. Again, Jinteki always part, the mind games. That triple advance card, is it a June bug? Or is it an agenda? You know what I mean? Like that's the game. That's the game Jinteki wants to play, and that's sort of the weird middle space they've been in since the beginning. Here's a really odd, like, double bluff that could work for them. It just depends.
You could even have a power turn with this, where like if you've got a pre-advanced Philotic, you play like 2 or 3 of these. The runner denies all of them. They go into the runner's score area, and then you score the Philotic, right? Yeah. Like you could set up that kind of turn, I guess. It's interesting.
Yeah, I like the idea where they're going with some of these Jinteki cards, where it's like if traps fail, that you're still able. You're like you said, Hollis. You're able to repurpose some of these failed traps, right? Like in the past, if you're trying to bait out a June bug, you're like, or an advanceable trap, you're like, boom, boom. There you go. Make your run. What do you got? And then if they're like, you know what, I'm not going to run that, and then by turn, 2 or 3 turns later, it's still on the board. You just look at the person and smile because you're like, I'm never going to run that, Now that it might be an agenda that they leave there the whole game and then screw you over with it, but very rarely does that happen. And that's why that's why we talked about the power of what NGO Front does too, right? It's like because it's an advanced bait and still like you're able to snap it, like get use out of that those advancements, where it's not just sitting there the whole time, or you're able to use it off turn. So I like where it's going with that. I guess the last one to talk about a boot. Let me just find the actual link so I can look at it. Is the console, is the Patchwork. Any feelings? Any feelings behind this one?
Right. Yeah. So this is the 4-cost Anarch console, 1 MU, once per turn. When you would play or install a card, you may trash 1 card from your grip to lower the play or install cost by 2. That's pretty neat. If you've got a card that isn't doing much for you in your hand and you're like, get that money, the fact that you can use it for both play or install means it's actually really flexible. So I dig it. If you've got a rig that like has enough pieces where that discount's going to matter, it could be pretty nice.
I think this could be a dangerous card down the road with it. It's it feels very shapery, but I think they're again learning lessons and costed it 3 and moved it into Anarch to alleviate some of that abuse that we could see, right? So I'm excited. I'm excited to try this. I still think that 3 influence is may not be too much to pull this power over into something like a shaper deck. I mean, we saw what it can do when you have an ability that lowers the install cost by 1, and how abused that can be. Right. So now this is lowering by 2 at more of a balanced level. So interesting.
It's gonna be money.
Yeah,
money.
Interesting. Any other thoughts on this whole deluxe expansion?
I think overall it's super exciting. I mean, if you take a look at the article at the top, it explains that you're getting tools for all 10 factions in the game, including an identity for each of the major 7 factions, 1 new console for each runner, 1 new gender for each corp. Like, that is a ton of variety in one box, and every faction gets love. So the way the article pitches this as a great next step for new players is, I think, it sounds like a really great deal. Like, you're going to get a ton of variety and be able to try out some cool new stuff. So I'm digging it. I'm really stoked.
So that's where I was going to go to kind of conclude this discussion here and get into our main topic of our show tonight. Do you guys have thoughts on delivering a big box in this format? Are you happy that it's mixed, or do you like the old school where it's 2 factions?
I think at this point in the game, they are past that. I think that the dual faction boxes made a ton of sense when we were trying to flesh out more pieces. But with the recent ruling, well, not recent, but with the new plan of pretty much, like big boxes remain forever, it makes more sense that instead big boxes shake up everything, because they're going to remain in the game in the present moment. As long as the game lives, like the big boxes will always be available to pull cards out of. So I don't think you want to do just a box with just 2 factions, because then arguably those 2 factions would have more available options than any of the other factions, and they want to avoid that kind of balance if possible, I think.
Yeah, I think they were done mostly as ways to flush out factions deeper, right? I think that was the intention, but I think when you look at it overall, I don't know if it actually did that because of the pace that they came out with. I think if big boxes were, if they had to release a whole bunch of them at the beginning a lot quicker, then we would have seen each faction flush out a little more, because that's what Shaper and HB needed after that first cycle. So Creation and Control really complemented and showed what Shaper could do with their tools, because Shaper was really lacking with that first cycle alone. And what was introduced in Creation and Control really defined them for even to this day, like the tools that were in there. So it's really interesting to see that this is the way to go. I do think that this is probably a better way, because now that rotation is underway, we should see a better pacing of the game. So, but we might need to look at that rule that big boxes don't cycle after a little bit, because something needs to be done, because that was a rule that was put in place kind of a little too late, after too much power was put into those big boxes to shape those factions. Okay, Alec, did you weigh in on that? Would you rather go 2 corp, or are you happy with the mix? Or
I'm down with Hollis's opinion. I think he's spot on. That at this stage in the game, I think we want a meta game where everybody feels like they're getting options pretty regularly. And I think an expansion like this is just really thematic and gives everybody new opportunities to try new things. So that would be my preference. And so, I'm really glad.
So you're saying that it's kind of like a real good, like, shot in the arm, a way to, like, kind of release a bunch of cards all at once instead of 6 packs, 6 weeks.
Yeah, I mean it's sort of like a condensed cycle in a way.
Yeah.
If that's what you're saying, it's sort of like that, which is sweet. So I'm into it.
Also, just as a small little almost side tangent here, I am so happy with that. So when we got the mini factions, it was very quickly revealed how underpowered they were competitively. Because a lot of options. Number one, lack of their own dedicated card pool, but beyond that, their limitations vastly outweighed their the available benefits each of those factions had. But now I could not be happier that we have the mini factions, because now we are approaching. I think eventually we will approach a critical mass. The mini factions aren't just a mini faction anymore. They're a whole full-blown faction. They can be as vast and as different as Weyland or as MBN or more specifically for runners, as Shaper, as Anarch, and that makes me hopeful because I don't even if they wanted to introduce new factions, I don't know how they do it at this stage because the card pool's so big. I don't know how they would actually do it.
Right.
I can't imagine them doing that. Like it would require a box to catch them up. Like they would actually have to say, "Hey, brand new mini factions coming, big box," or new factions being added. Here's a big box. Bam, here it is, right here. And here's a whole bunch of cards that work with this faction. It's totally different. In which case, I'm like, how does this work? That's so much playtesting involved to say, hey, here's a whole brand new, fresh batch of cards that can be influenced with something else. It's like insane.
Yes, and then so the other thing that I'd like to know is that, and we'll talk with him. It's coming, guys. Don't worry. But is this the first we see 100% bogs, or is a big box attached? Is the big box included? Like, do they kind of mentally tag that with a cycle? So when a designer, does it, we know Damon still had a hand in the cookie jar on some of the base of this set, and it was refined by box. But was it the cycle plus the big box? Or was it just the single pack? So is this the first we're seeing of the pure bogs ideas and forums coming out?
Yeah, that'll be a cool topic of conversation to chat with him about.
Where does the bogs era officially, break free from the chains?
Is this the beginning of the Bogfather era?
Cue the 80s song. All right.
Bogs clan.
Let's drop this. Let's get into some talk here. Some new, if you so choose to one day use this Gmod identity.
Heck yeah.
So, Woo, as we have seen, is dropped in this cycle. There was a lot of things leading up to this release. We first, like let me switch over to the path of the Woo here for a second. I'll show you
the history of Woo.
Yeah. Right?
Nice.
So Woo was first introduced, or the theme of this character was first introduced in a pack called Second Thoughts. In one of Hollis's old original favorite cards, Record Reconstructor.
Oh damn!
As you can see right here, I've brought it up on the screen. You can see there's the raccoon print on the coffee cup.
What a blast from the past.
Yes.
Amazing.
So that there is good times.
Awesome.
Then we move into some stuff last cycle. You see here's her quote here on Lean and Mean. We didn't know Woo was coming, but they dropped it. Right? Then Daredevil, as we're already seeing and we'll talk about, appearing in some of her decks, taking risks is what makes it fun. You get into her third and final quote was on Network Exchange. So there was some hints. There was some hints of her on the horizon. For this cycle, we have seen, obviously, you see Marathon. You see the actual raccoon or whatnot in its full glory there. And then you can see here on Because I Can, which is spoiled. Someone has done some graffiti draw-overs of this sporting event here in full raccoon-style fashion. So that's awesome. Those are all the Woo references that I could find. And now there she is right there in all her glory. I'll break it down and then turn it over. So we're talking about Woo. This is the new Shaper One Link Identity Gmod. That matters now. 4515 standard. For a click, search your stack for a non-virus virus is the bolded part, non is the non-bolded part, program and install it, lowering its install cost by 1. Then you shuffle your stack up. If that program is still installed when your turn ends, you remove it from the game.
Dang.
So there's the base, fellas. I turn it over to you now for some talking points.
Well, right off the bat, I want to point out the last time that we had a shaper that allowed you to install a card at a -1 credit discount, that ID was so good that it had to be removed from the game entirely.
Yep.
Because Kate was the sauce, right? Get the 1 link on top of that once per turn. You get nice little credit value, right? And so that's gone. And now we got Kabonesa Woo, which gives you that nice little search your stack, the 1 credit discount. Another ID that I'll point out that I think is relevant is the Professor, right? Back in the day, we get this Professor card, and you could fill your deck with all these incredible programs, but then you can never draw them, you can never install them, etc. I think Woo is the perfect harmony of these two ideas. It's like you get the little discount, you can get their cool rig, but you also have some flexibility to include some one-of crazy cards that allow you to do funky and awesome shaper things. So I think it's a fascinating ID. I think it's a really blank canvas, right, to do whatever you want in the shaper space. Do you want to have a hyper-focused cool rig? Do you want to pull out the sweet tech piece at the right time? What kind of direction you want to go? And for shaper players, I think this is a really interesting puzzle. How do you get the maximum benefit out of Woo? So it's intriguing for sure.
Hollis.
Well, I mean, when I first saw the ID initially, I was kind of angry, and the reason why is because I felt like we were taking a step in what initially felt like the wrong direction, because we just come from Kate, like you said, Alec, and we had seen the clear power of just being able to get the discount. And this card for a click is a tutor with the discount. So it's a tutor. Go get a non-virus. Put it into play with the discount of 1, and if it's still there, remove it. But that last sentence, that last section, to me is what I mean. Obviously, it changes up. It's not only just changes the card entirely. It changes how good the ability is. It does something that I want out of IDs, which is just give me a great ability with a little bit of a drawback, and then give me the available, and then provide for me within that faction answers to help mitigate it. So to get the biggest bang for the buck for this ID, I have cards automatically I can run to. We'll probably cover more of them in detail as we look at some of the decks, but examples, cards like Scavenge, right? Self-modifying code. Like, allow me to use the tools I have in faction that showcase why those cards are good outside of just what they do. They work really well with this ID, and it's thematic, it's functional, it feels like good design, and it's good. It's actually an efficient way to play the game, and you have to look at how you're playing a little differently, force you to play a little differently on the runner side than you normally would. So I'm happy. Like, overall, I'm very happy with the card. I think that the influence on it is appropriate, and it has a link. And who doesn't like a little extra spice? Who doesn't?
Hey, man,
give me a little cherry on top.
That link does work.
Yeah, right. Like, I mean, I like this ID very much, and I think as we delve into some of the decks, we'll see why. It'll become more clear.
Yeah. So, from my opinions on this card here is that I think so. Preferencing this, what I'm about to say, I will talk with my analysis and then personal preference. So it's important to distinguish two different things here. I think that Wu is an extremely efficient at doing what shapers do. I think that being able to... we all know that if you have a history of playing card games, search is very powerful. And to have a built-in search from the start, from turn one, being able to mitigate your opening hand, so to speak, right? Like always having something to do to save you from the get-go is just really, really powerful. I am glad from looking over the card. Again, I think the link is super powerful. I'm glad they didn't do anything kind of foolish with it by saying, hey, this is going to be a 45-12 or this is going to be a 45, 10 or things that we've done in the past. 45-15, I'm just glad that they've kind of kept it there, because usually when they put cool abilities on it, they try and do some kind of balance thing with the influence, and it just never works out. It just never works out for the best. So I'm glad that it's 15, even if I do feel that it's a very efficient ability. I am really, really, really glad that it is for non-virus programs. That was a genius balance move there, because of the fact that we are seeing viruses get into a healthier space now, that we're not seeing that abuse with noise. With noise being removed from the game, they are able to now do design and move into a space with viruses that they haven't been able to do before. If this card let you pull up viruses, we could be on the verge of seeing some kind of weird stuff happening. Most of you probably, like me, thought, oh, hell, I'm just going to be able to get an imp whenever I want if that wasn't there.
Forget it.
Right? Like, like
crazy.
Could you imagine back in the day, like, just pulling data sucker parasites, if that was, released back in those days, right? So I don't want to get into that kind of space where they can't go down that road again. So that being said, that is really cool. The only issue that I have with Wu in general is from a personal playstyle perspective, where I just feel like it's not experimenting enough and it's not different enough from Shaper. What Shaper has always done, and what the most efficient ones have done, like Haley, like Kate, is doing stuff to help speed up your setup. Like Shaper is that I'm going to build a rig faction. So they're just experimenting with different ways of how to get your rig out. So to me, this ID is not doing enough for me personally to draw me back into wanting to experiment and play with Shaper, because I know kind of what it's doing, right? Like, and so from that perspective, and personal playstyle, I like other Shaper IDs better than this one. Like if I was to if you told me that I had to play Shaper right now, I still like Smoke, and I just like that like I like the theme of what she brings. I've always kind of liked that stealth combo and whatnot. Getting the stealth pieces to pay for it, having your stealth breakers. I just think that's still kind of cool. But this is just a whole different Shaper at a whole different tempo. Or sorry, just a different way of doing Shaper tempo rig building. But I know this is getting really long here, but I think it's important for and could lead to good discussion. But what I do think is that it's also important to look at where the game is after a reboot. What they did is they cycled out a bunch of stuff. They have released a new core set, and you have to look at the core set as a new entry point for people. So there's people like, myself and, you guys that have been playing for a very long time. So even though we might be kind of like, this is just Shaper being Shaper, there are some people that this is their first kick at the can of moving along. Like if I had a choice between Chaos Theory from a core set, if that's what all I had, and Woo, I'd be really, really excited to play Woo and be like, wow, this is Shaper. This is what Shaper has to offer. So for those people getting involved at the core set level, and this is your first experience with Shaper, this is something I can see a lot of new players who want to embrace that play style getting involved in, because this is going to show you all of Shaper's tricks for all you new people. So to all you new people out there, have fun with Woo and enjoy it, because I think it's a cool way of doing Shaper, but it's just not enough to bring an old player like me back into the green.
Well said.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well said.
So there.
Totally respect it.
Woo! Hey, look, I got a hat for you, Jameson. I'm gonna give you a call. It says Real Talk on it.
Hey.
I'm gonna toss it across the internet. Just pick it up when it gets there, okay? Woo! Just grab it real quick out there.
Nice.
If I can get it in less than 2 days, it'd be Hollis Prime shipping there.
Well,
so any
get there late, Jameson? Get there late.
Do you guys have any? You'll get there late. Guaranteed.
Yeah.
Guaranteed
to get there late.
Guaranteed to get there late or your money back. So, do you guys have any any thoughts on what was just said there from a very smart person?
Sure. Well, my first reaction to hearing that is maybe thinking about this ID as a way to get to a combination of cards that you really like. Like that the ID itself is it facilitates a cool rig or a cool combination of cards, cool set of programs. And if you find that within Shaper, that combination of things that you really like, that this is the ID that can help you accelerate that rig condition. But even more so, I want to say for you, Jason, if you're digging the smoke, right? If you want to get smoke set up, then what about using Woo as a way to set up Smoke's rig and then rebirth out of Woo into Smoke?
Shenanigans.
Right? And then you're all set up and you're good to go. I'll do you one better.
What's that restaurant we used to go to back in the day that we used to like? Shenanigans?
Yeah, it's total shenanigans, right? But I'll do you one better. Old DJ Fenris, right? He's coming out in a couple months, we think. He can grab you Smoke as well, right? So then you would have 2 cards in your deck that can turn you into Smoke.
No,
so in the same way that...
Dude, Woo on Fenris is just going to be bananas.
Oh, excuse me. No, I'll correct that mistake right away. Fenris gets you out of faction cards, so you can't use... My bad. So you can't use Fenris in Woo to get Smoke. My mistake. But you could still rebirth, and you could find ways of accelerating your draw, getting rebirth, and going right from Woo into Smoke. I think that's pretty solid. Like, that's a cool degree of flexibility and consistency in rig setup.
If you rebirth in the middle of the turn, the program stays, right?
I would imagine so. I mean,
because the trigger is gone.
Right, the ID is no longer around. Yeah. If we have some rules lawyery folks in the chat, maybe they can confirm their thoughts on that. Sounds reasonable to me.
Yeah,
But there you go. Yeah. So maybe that's a way to go with it. But hopefully today we'll talk about enough decks that maybe you'll get some inspiration. You'll see some combination of things that you hadn't thought of, and who knows? Maybe we might get, if not you, other folks inspired to test out WoW.
Hollis has gone to do some shady stuff as he turns his camera off for a moment.
Oh no, we lost him.
Did we lose him altogether, or is he still there?
Hollis, no.
Yeah, so yeah, I do think this is going to be an incredibly efficient Shaper ID and a great first step into anyone that hasn't experienced all the Shaper bag of tricks. You're really going to be able to come out the can here.
Totally.
Did he really disappear? Hollis, are you mute or did you disconnect? I guess
we're yet.
All right, let's kind of push through right about now.
Yeah, let's talk decks.
Yes, so I'm gonna cut over to a deck screen. So what we have here is we're going to go through a couple decks. I'll just show you them in general here first, but you'll be able to get the links to these in the description below. So we're going to go through these 4 decks.
Sweet.
Starting with this Undefeated in Rockford one. They should be in order in the description. So if you guys just want to click through those, you'll be able to find them.
Perfect.
All right, let's walk through this.
All right, so our first deck here is, I think, the most straightforward and clear-cut use of the WoW ID, and I think a lot of people immediately recognized, hey, wait a second, can't I get Magnum Opus on turn 1 every single game? And this deck says yes. Yes, you can. And with that, you just start putting in good cards. So you see, of course, the 3 self-modifying code, and 2 Magnum Opus. So self-modifying code, you get that out with the Woo ability, and then you use self-modifying code to go get Opus, and you're good to go, right? You got money for days. And what are you doing with that money? Just good cards. You're going to slam in for indexing and Mad Dash. You got a spicy Gauntlet console for some HQ multi-access. Stim Hack seems good. And then just a solid, good Breaker Suite, right? Papercut, Gordian Blade, 2 Femme Fatale, which in combination with 3x Scavenge means you've got a ton of flexibility. The 1 Omen in there is pretty nice. Clot is pretty cool as well, you know, if you've got a turn where you think that's going to be relevant. Trope is an interesting include, as is the Underworld Contact LLDS Memory Diamond combo. I guess it's leveraging her link. And you see here in the description, it mentions this is a Congress-style WoW, and if you recall, Congress-style came out a while ago and emphasizes drip money in addition to this Magnum Opus, meaning that even on turns when you don't have the clicks to use Opus, you're still gaining that kind of eventuality condition of having all the money. So it's just full of good stuff.
And that's another example right there of why I feel like it's like balancing it with the virus capability is good. Because I mean, if you could just be like straight out, be like click search for Clot, then I'd be like, oh my god, like nobody would want to play against this, right? At least you have to 2-step it, you know.
Yeah, exactly.
Or
and
you know, choose to burn one of those self-modifying codes or something as that. Stepping stone.
Right, for sure. Yeah, so it just looks like it's got some nice little tech pieces. Again, that feedback filter there I found a 1-of feedback filter in a lot of decks recently, even outside of Shaper, to be pretty useful. So I dig that one as well.
Shh.
Sorry. Yeah, feedback filter is a terrible card. Never run it. Yeah. What do you guys think? Seem like a solid, worthy of an undefeated store champ run kind of deck?
Yeah. It was, oh, go ahead, Hollis. I mean, you came back. Might as well give you some a reason.
Well, I was gonna say, like, basically, you went through each of the cards. I could hear you. I could hear you, but it's like you went through pretty much all the key cards here in this deck, and like what's crazy to me is just the sheer number of synergistic cards that work well with Mrs. Wu, Miss or Mrs. I don't know. With Ms. Wu, and I think this speaks a lot to the available options. Like, obviously, you want to be able to use SMC to gain the greatest advantage here. You want to have Scavenge over here to gain the greatest advantage and circumvent like the negative aspect of this ID. But for me, what really stood out, sort of like number one, trope. When I saw that, I was like, oh. And of course, this deck isn't running this. You know, in order to be able to run the Magnum Opus, this deck can't run the Levy AR Lab access. So trope, I guess, is the fixer for this. Trope is going to sit out and just bank up token after token after token, and then you're going to rinse and repeat some of these cards here. I dig this. I also like the synergy with Paperclip. There's like the clear synergy with Paperclip. I can go get it and sell it at a discount. And while it's going to get discarded later, the fact remains is if I really, really need to, this is an option. I can scavenge it, or I can just let it die.
Yeah, and then it gets removed from the game, though.
Oh, that's even worse. Never mind then. Sorry.
Yeah,
but I mean,
but if you, yeah.
I mean, I just really like that. Especially Scavenge. I think Scavenge was a card that we saw seldomly used. It was a very specific circumstance, and now Scavenge is just so sexy here. Like just saying, I'll go get Opus and Scavenge. It's there. It's so attractive.
Yep, that's going to be a common theme, I think, in a lot of the decks we're going to look at, is that Scavenge and self-modifying code are kind of the like key includes for WoW.
The stuff too. There was a question in the chat about Chameleon usage, and yeah, Chameleon can get around this ability, right? Because the two things happen at the same time when your turn ends, so you get to pick the order you want. So you can bounce Chameleon to your grip, and then
that's correct,
because it's not there. To fulfill her ID ability, it just kind of neutralizes it out. And also, hey, what's up, Travis? So, yeah, I think that everything you said is spot on for this. This is the kind of deck that when the ID was first introduced, this is where your mind goes. Right? This is going to be the bare bones. You're going to see little tweaks down the road. It'd be interesting once you be able to get influence back from that stim hack. Alec, what's that one called?
Yeah, so if you folks want to take a look at the preview article for the pack called Kampala Ascendant, which is the 6th pack of the Kitara cycle, one of the cards that they preview there pretty prominently is called Flameout. And it's a 2-cost hardware mod that hosts a program, and you put 9 credits on Flameout when you install it, and then you can use those credits to pay for using the hosted program. But then at the end of your turn, you trash the hosted program if you use the credits on Flameout. So like with Chameleon, like we were just mentioning, you can choose to do the Flameout trash the program before the remove the program from WoW. And so you're getting that kind of stim hack effect, and also a way to hide your program in your bin there.
I dig that.
It's cool. Yeah.
Yeah. So then what you're going to see is this standard deck, I believe, move towards using that style of card, replacing the stim hack, freeing up a little bit of influence to make some adjustments here or there. So minus, let's say, give or take that realm of 3 cards or so, and not, I don't mean like 3 copies of a card. I mean 3 distinct cards. choices. This is pretty much bare bones Woo.
And it's good stuff.
Yeah, and again, this is a great introductory to Shaper for anybody coming in new to the game.
100%. Sweet.
Yeah, so then moving over to our next one, our deck connoisseur has picked out the Art of Folding.
Oh, it's time to get a little funky.
Yeah. But look, we're moving right to the good stuff. This is the Art of Folding 2.0.
Oh yeah, we're not skipping any of that 1.0 nonsense.
Yeah,
this is refined.
Get it out.
So when I saw this in action, my buddy David Weeks was giving this a try, and I honestly couldn't understand what he was doing at first. I was very confused because the combos seemed very strange. And then he installed an Eco Mind, and I lost my mind because that card is crazy.
Hey, Jameson.
Yeah, man.
Hey, man.
Throwback.
Eco Mind, though,
Throwback.
right? Hey.
So check this out. Woo allows you to get 3 copies of Origami installed very quickly.
Yeah.
So you got your Origamis down. Your hand size is enormous. And then you're running 3 of a little card called Game Day. So you find a Game Day, you go to town, play Game Day, draw up half your deck, and then you've got an enormous hand size, so much flexibility. And then take a look at that Eco Mind there. That number of cards in your grip is equal to your memory limit. Okay. Now we got Overmind installed, and your Overmind has 1 billion counters. Can't be beat.
You can break anything. It doesn't matter.
You can break anything. Yeah.
Break any number of subroutines.
Yeah.
As long as it has less than 1 million.
It's like
the thing that
it's like this style wants to be Adam so bad. Like this is like poor man's brain chip, right? In like five steps.
It's like
do it yourself brain chip right here.
Yeah, it's a build a Byroid workshop. The one spicy card I love in this deck, the thing that really makes it is you want your Eco Mind, right? For the Overmind combo. So what do you put in to get Eco Mind? You put in 3 Tyson Observatory. That's what you put in the deck.
What a ridiculous include. Like, I'm so mad. What a ridiculous include.
Yeah.
It's actually ridiculous.
It's crazy. But I'll tell you what, I've seen it in action, and because of Woo, it gets set up pretty darn quick. Yeah. And you get that Overmind installed, and it just like...
Did you already say when you say Overmind... did you already touch on the fact that Dean Lister is just gonna?
Oh yeah,
like Dean Lister alone is gonna slap you in the face if you get that combo set up.
Well, there you go. Yes, you got Dean Lister of a 3 of in the deck. There's also one of System Seizure, which is like a kind of backup Dean Lister.
So yeah, for those people that are just kind of listening and not following along with the deck list, Dean Lister is until the end of the run, that Icebreaker has +1 strength for each card in your grip. So if you do have half your deck in your hand because of Game Day and Eco Mind, that's a pretty fat Overmind.
Yeah, that's pretty phenomenal. I will say though, the one weakness of this deck, it's Achilles' heel,
is that you need all the combos to get together. You need all these people to come together there.
Not just that is important. But it's actually the Levy AR Lab access. I'll point out that this card is probably necessary to cycle back in all of your deep data minings and money and all that. But the problem is if you have EcoMine installed and you levy, you go down to 0 cards in hand. And if EcoMind is still installed, you trash all your programs because you have 0 MU in that moment. So what the author of this deck has noted is that someone has suggested Dr. Lovegood to turn off EcoMind the turn you're going to levy so that you don't trash your own programs. It's just total shaper jack, but I love it. It's so funny.
That passes the too convoluted for my taste mark right there, though.
Yep. Well, good. Let's move on then, but I think it's a cool deck that people should really try because it's neat.
Hollis, did you have any thoughts, any other clothing ones on that folding?
I don't actually.
All right, let's move into Tech Trader Thrill Seeker.
Oh boy.
So this deck is kind of the direction that my mind went when I first saw Woo, because this deck
aligning with
takes
criminal.
Yeah. So check out all this criminal influence, right? And I think the real star of the show is Grappling Hook, right?
Good God.
As crazy as it is, because Woo removes the program at the end of the turn, what is better than a program that trashes itself mid-run on the turn? Not just that, but you can combine this with the Kangamato that we talked about a couple episodes ago. And Kangamato Grappling Hook allows you to break any ice in the game at basically no cost. That seems pretty good, right? So what this deck is as the author states, it's a reactionary deck, right? So
you probably should have led into like I think I think most people went for a refresh of their drink when you're like, I got this Grappling Hook deck. They're
sorry.
They're like, you know what? We'll be back in 5. You know?
You're totally right. And yeah, this is definitely the opposite end of the spectrum from what we looked at in that first deck list. This is not the kind of deck that's going to set up and slowly build this overwhelming control victory condition. This is like, if you stick something in that remote, I can get it. That's what this deck is. And that's pretty powerful, but it's also pretty bursty.
Yeah, so I think that this is like these are really cool. This is a really cool idea and mechanic to kind of experiment with. Same with the art of folding. I will say though, again, like let's level set this from a person that if you are just, moving your way into Shaper, start with that first deck list.
Yeah.
This Tech Trader Thrill Seeker is, you're probably not going to see success with it until you've played it like 15 times. Right? This is going to be something you're going to have to put through the motions and get the feel of when you're going to have to pull what out and do what here and make this happen. And so this is going to be a very, very Shaper at its highest level, pieces moving everywhere.
Yep. I totally agree. And I think this is a great moment to also touch on cards that aren't going to show up in any of the deck lists we're talking about today, but I think are cards that fill a similar niche to what's going on in this deck. Cards like Chameleon, which we mentioned earlier. Cards like Brahmin, which I haven't actually seen too many people play with, but I think Brahmin is a really nice synergy with Woo. These cards that like guaranteed get you in. It's the same thing that Fem is doing. It's like, all right, Woo can make this happen, get in for a turn. It's going to be pretty good synergy. But like you're saying, it takes some piloting experience, and it takes the confidence and skill to be like, all right, this is a turn where I know there's a run that I've got to make. And Woo will gut you there, but you have to make the right calls and the right turns. So it really just takes practice to know what are the good strategies to take.
And it's gonna actually take like knowing this deck, right? Like don't show up on a game night or a tournament without extensive repetition and knowledge of this, because it's really going to drag your game time out if you're going to have to stop and think for a few minutes every time you see something. The people that usually make these decks are the ones that they can play through it with speed. So I just urge you, if get some reps in before you show up with some of these cool jankier style ones.
100%.
Yeah. So yeah, very very interesting one. You're seeing some of that core shaper stuff kind of carrying through. Again, we're seeing Beth still prevalent in shaper decks. This one here, because you're not getting that other draw, it's using again some old school stuff like professional contacts to kind of get that draw engine built up. And I actually don't like. I have been a negative Nancy, or I've been against professional contacts because of the speed, because you want it early and because of the tempo hit it gives you. But I don't mind it in something like Woo because it's offset on what you're able to do with her ability. It's kind of a good balance there. So if you want to use professional contacts in Woo, I will not say anything negative about that combination. I think it's a good trade-off. And then again, Amen. You see using that that Daredevil console. So yeah, really cool stuff. But I think that some of these ones here are stars align, right?
Yeah.
Sure.
This is definitely gonna be more like the power. This is gonna appeal to like that power gamer. It has that really cool combo, and to be honest, having this work out alone, right, for you to be able to utilize cards like Kangamato and Grappling Hook, it's almost like all you almost care about is that it works. Like when it happens, just even once, you're like, yes, my plan is coming together, and then
right. Yeah, it's opportunistic. It's like, if the corp is set up the conditions, I can destroy them. Right. But it has to be that. So, fair point.
I dig it. I do dig it. It's cool. It's cool. Hey, shout out to what's it? Kaz272, also Bakuru and Dane. Shout out to you guys for these deck lists, by the way, that we're reviewing, and I'll give the shout out to the other person when we get there.
100%. Sweet. Well, shall we get to this last one here?
Yeah, man.
Do it.
Ready.
All right. So this is the one that I saved for last because I think it is the most unusual, but also the most intimidating because of the gross things that it can do.
Yeah, I will say that this is probably the most abuse of her ability that I think that we have seen yet. I hats off to this deck build. But unfortunately, this is the one that if everything is going right and you just so happen to play the deck that it works really well against, and I think when we see a couple other pieces flush out for Woo, we'll talk about I'll just say like Marathon and all that stuff. If you were playing the deck that this lines up with perfectly, you're going to be flipping tables because this is going to be frustratingly annoying to see it, like not from a perspective of it's shitty to play against, like that kind of annoying, but the annoying that it just if everything is going good with this deck, it is just mind-blowingly shutting you down ridiculously, and you're just going to be so frustrated.
Yep. So what we're talking about here is the Rubicon, undefeated Colorado Store champ, second place, and the idea, right?
Again, I just say it's the best oxymoron in the world, right? Like if you were undefeated and you got second place, like we all know how that mechanic works out. Right, obviously his corp lost, but it's just so funny to say undefeated second place in the title.
That's right. That's right.
Well,
so what we're doing here is we're going back to a card that I personally love and have spent a lot of time with in the past, and this is Au Revoir. Au Revoir, fantastic card, and actually works really nice out of Shaper because guess what? You can tutor it extremely easily. Oh, and also guess what? You're Woo, so you can tutor it even easier. So Au Revoir allows you to gain a credit whenever you jack out. Seems cool. If you got all three installed, which, hey, guess what? You can get pretty easily within the first 2-3 turns, probably. You now have a credit-generating engine that can generate 12 credits per turn. Guess what? You also have Out of the Ashes, so you can get some free runs there.
You don't see Out of the Ashes played enough.
I know.
That's where my hats off, or I'm not really going to, but tip of the cap then to the include of Out of the Ashes.
Oh yeah, the author states here for Out of the Ashes, you discard this card and now you get 3 credits and a 2-card draw from Daredevil and 1 turning wheel counter for free before your turn begins. Like that's the optimal payout of an Out of the Ashes in this deck, which is just mind blowing. So you get this crazy amount of money. Now you say, well, what if the Corp puts down ice, right? Corps play ice. They're going to ice their servers. You're not going to get that Au Revoir money. Well, that's where the Rubicon switch comes into play. Oh, my God. You get all your icebreakers out. You can break anything you want. You have a billion credits, and they start rezzing stuff, and you start de-rezzing stuff. And to rub salt in that wound even further, your Fractor is Ankuza, which is super expensive to use. But again, you're able to get your economy up and running so quickly and generate so many credits so quickly that you can more reliably get Ankuza on board and start to return barriers to HQ. Tinker a piece of ice into a barrier, return it into HQ. I can even see running Egret in this deck. So you use Woo to get out an Egret, turn it into a barrier, use Ankuza, return it to their grip. Like it's nutso. So yeah, hopefully you'll now see what this deck is doing and the shenanigans that it can get up to. And let me tell you, having run it a couple times and having had Corpse concede against this deck, it's a rough time if everything starts working.
When you start to see like basically the huge credit stack, coming from the Au Revoirs, like that's what's insane to me. Because on the Corpse side, and I played a game recently where I'll say this in the very early stages of the game, my opponent amassed 2 data folding in another style of deck. They amassed 2 data folding and 2 underworld contacts so quickly. Like I want to say turn 1 for them was something like a Sure Gamble and then 2 data foldings, and I was like, what? And their following turn, then the turn that followed was something like because they were playing Anarch, and it was something like a inject into another economy like thing, and then it was like 2 more contacts. I was just like, what is happening? Like, so you're telling me like turn 2, like turn 2, turn 3, whatever, you're gonna start off gaining 4, and as the Corpse side, I'm still developing. I don't even know the pace in which I have to move, and now I see all these cards, and I'm like, okay, I guess that pace is really freaking fast. Because otherwise, you're just going to overrun me with just your free credit, your credit economy that's going to drip in here. So knowing like you said, 12 credits a turn. On the Corpse side, you start just jamming just agenda. Okay, ice agenda go. Like I can't afford, I cannot afford just to wait and do nothing. But what's so great about this is that it punishes if you do it even a little too late, trying to get those agendas out. This punishes even further because not only do they know what all the threats are, but the ice is getting de-res anyway. In your effort to rush, they can say, you know what, maybe I don't have to extend the clock out this long. Maybe I go now and force you to re-res right now. We don't have the money. So it feels like it's a very, when it works, a very damned if you do, damned if you don't scenario. Mm-hmm. And I can see when this is up and running, the almost immediate concession. Because at that point, if I know that I can't win, and I know that any action I take that doesn't shut you down completely results in me just handing you agendas, nah, screw that. Let's end the game. Go to game 2.
So for me, the thing that I'd like to talk about in this deck is something near and dear to my heart, and I like to give tonight's official Aquaman award.
Hey,
and the
nice.
The Aquaman award goes to the card that is sometimes essentially the most useless, like Aquaman, but sometimes when you have to talk to fishes, he's very, very handy to have around. So this award goes to Feedback Filter.
Hey, nice.
Sometimes this will be the most useless card, but if you're playing decks that I love to play, which is the Jinteki little net damage, this card is annoying as hell, but because of the amount of money that this deck makes, you're just like usually Feedback Filter's drawback is usually they're like, it's all about timing and you have to trickle them down. But if they're able to be like, hey, I'm going to hit you for 3 net damage, and they're like, pay 9. And you're just like, God damn it. Right? Like when someone has money and Feedback Filter, that's just like the epitome of annoying. So
it's crazy. There you go.
Feedback
Aquaman
Filter,
approved.
You have the Aquaman award, where most of the time you're going to be useless as hell, but there is that one time we need you, and you're there, and you're going to come through stronger than ever. Shout
out to Jason Momoa for being but also and of course shout out to Math and Love, he's the person that posted the Rubicon deck here. I don't know if it's, I can never tell nowadays with how many iterations decks go through and people copy. I can never tell who actually makes the deck sometimes. Like who's the originator. But shout out to him for actually posting this particular deck here, and congrats on your finish. It's second place is still respectable, and I feel like this is one of those decks where, I mean, if this is up and running, I like I said, I can see the concession so easily. Yeah, I can't do anything.
It's funny because Netrunner DB used to have that option on it, was like, ideas section, or this is. You could used to be able to give credit, like this is a derived list of this, and this, or something.
But still does.
But nobody ever uses those.
Well, sure, but if you go to the info tab for this particular list, we can see that it's derived from a deck called Thrill Seeking Dorks, and was the inspiration for we regret nothing. I'll also point out, thanks Hollis, by the way, for mentioning the author. I want to point out that the author of this deck has been pretty active in the comment section of this deck list. And actually, for several deck lists that we've talked about today, there's been some lively comments in those deck lists. So I encourage you to check those out. There's some recommendations there on cards that people are suggesting they include or swap in, swap out, and join in that conversation and suggest some things, or make some of these decks yourself. And definitely, like Jameson's suggesting, give credit. There's an easy option in the deck building on Netrunner DB to check what was your inspiration. And keep that conversation going in the comments there, because it's great.
Yeah, and then the other one I'd like to shout out to, or I don't want to use that word, back it up. The other one I'd like to give credit for in these builds, the 3 of them, I like Out of the Ashes. I love seeing that used. I love the Feedback Filter is the one I've include because you're making so much money. God damn it. But the other one I feel that fits well is the Cold Read.
Yo, that Cold Read. Nice. So good.
So it is something that really kind of works with this whole, again, understanding like the Woo mechanic.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, it's solid. I think on the whole, I think the deck lists that we're seeing are pretty impressive, and they're doing a pretty wide variety of things. And some, like that first list or Rubicon, kind of has a definite game plan, is going to get a rig and is just going to beat your face with it. And then the other deck lists we saw, maybe a little more janky, a little more combo-y, burst kind of pressure. But what I want to say overall is I think this is a really exciting start to a lot of possibilities for this ID. And that hopefully, based on decks we're seeing today and other decks that we've been hearing about, that these are inspirations for the possibilities that this ID can inspire for deck lists going forward. So definitely an ID to keep an eye on for new decks coming out.
I'm with it. I'm with it.
That's my final word.
Hollis?
Well, I think that since the absence of Kate, there's been a lot of discussion already on the, in the Netrunner Dorks, like Facebook group already about what are the available options in Shaper that really going to allow them to stand out. And I think, while I don't think Mrs. Wu like necessarily resolves all those issues, it's really nice to know that there are some available options that exist that are powerful, that we know are going to help bring that power level back to this faction. So I'm always, me, I'm one of the first people, whenever I see that there's an imbalance in the game, I'm one of the first people to like immediately get defensive or active about like calling it out. Like, hey, this is really unbalanced. How did you not realize this? How did you miss this? Like this seems so obvious just by looking at it. And I think I'm starting to feel that way towards Shaper a little. And then this releases and I'm like, well, hold on. Let's like looking at the full scope of things. And when I say full scope, I guess just as the new packs come out, it's like, okay, I didn't give this enough credit. This is actually really, really good. So maybe this is better than I give it credit for. So that means that maybe like does it have tier 1 potential? Are people going to rationalize playing this over anything in Anarch or anything over in Criminal or and vice versa and everything? So I think Kabonesa Woo is quite good.
I think it's Shaper is a really interesting faction to design and to look at. Everything about Shaper says to me rig building with tempo. That was evident from day one with McCaffrey, giving you the discount, stretching your buck. Then what you saw was the power that was put through with Haley decks. All that diaper shenanigans and things that came out of that. Like I'm sure when Dave gets a hold of Woo, we're going to see something ridiculous from that man's mind. Incredible deck builder out of the UK. But I really find it's crazy because when they come out with something like Woo, I find myself saying, that's just the deck building in the same way. But then when they go the other way with things, and come out with stuff like Jess, right? When they come out, when you look at they had Nasser, BIOS, it's just, when they go too far, it's like those people just discount them like right away. They're just like, we don't want that. So it's I think it's hard to find something in Shaper that Shaper does or to reinvigorate something totally different. And and that's fine. I think they were on the right track. I would like to see something. One day I would love to see Kit reprinted as a 4515, and we will be in a perfectly golden world. Something
Fair
with,
enough.
so yeah, the next shaper, come on, after I'd like to see something more Kit like. Hopes and dreams, but as of right now, the efficiency of Wu is just off the charts.
Yeah, I think definitely something to keep an eye on as we round out our store championship season and start thinking about regionals. Like, are people getting these Wu decks together? Are they bringing them to regional events? Like, that's going to be the real, I think, showdown for these decks.
Yeah, and I think the honestly the potential has to be limitless with her right now because we haven't even seen the rest of the cycle flush out.
Yeah.
So there's got to be some hidden pieces, and like I said before, what was it, the marathon? I feel like that's a good fit in there. And we've already saw the flame on or whatever that whatever that human torch card is. Fantastic.
There you go.
Style.
Nice.
So that's the breakdown of Wu. I hope you personally enjoyed it, because I know that we did. Guys, we are on track to dive into the next pack in this cycle the next time you join us. That has already been out there and spoiled. We'll be diving into Council of the Crest, and so I hope to find you here joining us next week, and we'll be talking about Netrunner as we always do. Help us out, subscribe, and like this video, share it with your friends and family. Do what you got to do. We're done.
Let's play more Netrunner. There you go.
I would also recommend sharing it with your pets. 6% of our viewers are animals, so if you would go ahead and show it to your hamster, so he or she would like it, I would appreciate it.
Yeah. There is that one person out there that wrote us that email that said before they leave from work in the morning, they put on a Bad Publicity playlist so their dog can listen to Hollis's smooth, sultry tones while they are at work.
To that person, you're welcome.
Yeah, see?
Bow wow. Bow wow wow.
Woof woof.
Oh, real woof.
It's incredibly early, so in the morning for us as we record real time here. We are out. Thank you very much, everyone.
Have a good night, everyone.
Take care.